So the other day I was just looking at my tank and I was like, let me feed my tank. But then I was like, what do I feed my tank? So I thought, wouldn't it be nice if there was a tier list of what coral food I could feed and why I should feed them? And this is the video on it. So welcome back to another episode of Tell the Truth Thursday, where I review a product that I use and I tell you what I think about it. Firstly, as always, I'm not sponsored by anyone, so these reviews are really just how I feel and information that I wish I could find online but struggled to find. So today I'm doing a video not just on a single product, but I'm kind of reviewing all the coral food that I have, and I'm trying to put it in a tier list so that it can help you to decide what to feed, or if you're looking to buy new coral food, what to look out for. So before I go into the tier list, it will be super helpful if you could like this video, and it will go a long way to helping me grow this channel. And also, do note that in most cases when I refer to the food or the corals, I'm referring to them in general, so there are always exceptions to the rules. Alright, so let's get into it. So there are 6 main types of coral food that I've broken it down into, and I'm currently feeding all 6 types to my tank in different proportions on different days. And all this coral food I've been using for some time, so be rest assured that what I share is what I do feed to my tank. So I'll be going more or less in order of the coral food size, and I'll also show you the products that I use for each different type of coral food. So do pause the video if you need to take a quick look at them. So the first one is amino acids. I did a video on amino acids, and in essence amino acids are selected aminos that are believed to be easy for coral intakes and help with coral growth and coloration. The second type of coral food is what I would like to call mixtures, which are built on aminos, where they are a combination of carbohydrates, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and they all blend it together to give you a superfood. The third is powder food, which are usually a blend of proteins and particulate plankton. They are grinded into powder for broadcast feeding or for target feeding. The fourth is pellets, which are quite similar to powdered food, just that it is in pellet form, and in some cases they are actually created for fishes. However, you can use them to feed your corals as well. The fifth form of coral food is the liquid feed. These usually are either live or whole organisms feeds that are packed into a bottle or a mixture of different organisms that you can add to the tank through either broadcast feeding or target feeding. And the final coral food, it's not really a coral food, but it is actually frozen food, which are usually created for fishes. However, corals such as larger LPS will catch onto them and they will eat them as well. So for each type of this coral food, I match them against a criteria that you might consider when deciding which coral food to feed, and I put them into a table of some sort. So 2 key things to note. The first is that, as mentioned before, this list is not exhaustive, and there are always exceptions to a coral food, and the information should not be taken as hard truths because they are based on how I feel, which is always subjective. Okay, so now onto the list. So as you can see, there are some numbers, and the higher the number, the more ideal it is, which I'll explain later. So the main few criteria that I chose to rank these corals are based on the types of corals that the coral food feeds directly, which mainly if the food can be eaten by all corals or if only certain type of corals are being fed directly. The next criteria is the nitrate and phosphate content, and I calculated this based on the increase in my nutrients after using the products based on the recommendations by the manufacturer. Next is storage, which is the ease of storage, so whether it needs to be kept in the cupboard or it needs to be refrigerated after opening. So the fourth criteria is the coral feeding response, which refers to the feeding display of the corals as the corals are consuming the coral food. And the final criteria is the ease of feed, which is how much preparation is needed to feed them to the corals. I will not go through every single type of food because it's going to be too long a video. I'm just going to take one example, and let's say we take a look at powder food. So when I look at powder food going from left to right, powder food can be fed to almost all corals based on what the manufacturers say, and it gets a 1 in phosphate and nitrate content because most powder foods, especially reefroids, are known as a phosphate sink. So compared to other coral foods such as aminos or even frozen food, they do raise your nutrients by significantly, so they get a 1, which means that they are less ideal. If you look at storage, powder food generally do not need to be stored in the fridge or in the freezer, unlike other coral food, which is why it gets a higher rating as compared to that. For coral feeding response, it is not as spectacular as looking at your corals eat a whole live mysis or rotifers, which is why it gets a 2 as compared to frozen food. And finally, generally powdered food can be broadcast fat or target fat and are similar to other types of coral food, which is that they are quite easy to feed, which is why they have quite similar ratings to most of the other coral food. So the way to look at this is that you can either look at it as a specific coral food, or you can look at it for a particular criteria. So let's say you want to look at the criteria of increasing your nutrients and you have very high nutrients, so you can look at which of the coral food does not increase your nutrients by a large amount. I do believe that some of you guys will disagree or have different opinions, and I would love the different opinions and I would love to hear you out. So if you disagree or even if you agree, you can tell me about it in the comment section and we can always discuss about it. With that, I think I will wrap up my video right here. Thank you for watching and do consider subscribing to my channel to follow my journey. So stay safe everyone, love your tank, till next time, see ya! So the other day I was just looking at my